Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte faces a high-stakes confidence vote today in the Senate. The final showdown comes after Conte received the backing of the lower house of Parliament on Monday. Joining us now from Brussels, our reporter Maria Tadeo, with a look at what is happening in Italy. So does Conte have the votes then that he needs in the Senate, having survived in the House, Maria?
Well, Anna, that is really the big question, and the numbers do look tight in the Senate, and that is really what matters. He needs to win in the Senate. If you look at the Italian press this morning, even the papers that are usually very closely aligned to Conte say that this looks very, very tight. And the government now for days have been trying or hunting, I would say, for senators that may be willing to switch party lines and actually back Conte today. There's two words that are really doing the rounds in the Italian political debate, meaning responsabili costruttori, and that refers to senators, again, that may be now willing to back him and usually would not vote in line with the government. Now, if Conte manages to get that, then of course he stays in office. There would probably be a government reshuffle, but he would stay as head of the Italian government. If he doesn't, well, that clearly opens now the door to bring in the technocrats, something similar to that of Mario Monti when the Euro crisis was at its peak, or perhaps open the door to an election. What I would note, however, is that the election, just given the facts of the logistics, would be so hard that we're in the midst of a pandemic. That does seem at this point a very far-fetched option, and that's perhaps what's explaining the calm that we're seeing in the Italian bond market, even on a day like today where we really don't know whether the Prime Minister stays or goes by the end of the day.
Could you just repeat that phrase again? What was the phrase that you just told us in Italian?
Responsabili costruttori. That's really the keywords, Matt. You know, this gets repeated every hour in Italy, and it does mean that those senators that would not vote for Conte would now be willing to do this and essentially cross party lines. And that's what's interesting about Italian politics. You know, you vote for something and then 2 years later you get something completely different. But, you know, what Conte is saying, and this is now almost his pitch to stay in office, is that the country does need this national rally around him to be able to tap the money from the recovery fund, to be able to approve new legislation, and to be able to deal with the pandemic. And he hopes that that is going to strike a chord with senators today that, as I say, about 10 or 12 that he needs would not usually vote in favor of Conte. Today they should, or that is at least what he's hoping to achieve.
All right. I'm just looking. Sorry, I'm just looking at the yields here. BTP is yielding about 61 basis points, actually down a little bit. Although we did see Italian yields rise yesterday. It was only a slight gain, and we were looking at gains in bunds as well, right?
Yes, Matt, and you know, it's interesting to see that there's been very little reaction to what is another government crisis, especially if you compare it to the previous one when Salvini walked out of the government. But again, I guess it does feed into this narrative that the European Central Bank is still very active in the market. You have the PEP program, you have the money from the recovery fund that in principle is coming. And I would also say, Matt, this is a very technical detail, but it is important that the term for the Italian presidency is ending at the end of this year. So which means that after July, an election cannot be called. So you have a very tight window to call an election in the midst of a pandemic, even by Italian standards. Politics at times really do defy logic there. It does seem that it would be very difficult to organize an election from now until the summer. So that window being very tight does mean that that election, perhaps the prospect of a snap election, is very far removed.